All right, so I am going to show you guys something crazy, right? So something something that I have never really talked about is the funk will prevail. Okay, the funk will prevail was a crazy moment. I'll explain. Let me go back. I'm gonna go back and hit Google real quick. I'm gonna show y'all how old tripping was. So let's go ahead and put in my name and Twitter. So the one thing about the funk will prevail, majority ideas were all uploaded to Twitter and Instagram like a whole year before. So I'm gonna show y'all what the OG version of Trippin' sounded like. And so this was March 30th, 2021. Actually, you know what? Let me get back. Let me get before I get into this. So I remember this particular day, March 30th, 2021. I had I had this moment, and I'm gonna try and see if I can find it on my phone. Um, but there was a vocal recording. And matter of fact, I used to go on runs in the morning, like early in the morning. And one of the things about going on runs early in the morning was that I would typically have these ideas. And around March, April, May, June, July, I had all these ideas coming. They were just hitting me left and right. And I didn't necessarily know how I was going to take these ideas and kind of run with it. But I'm going to see if I can find March 29th, 2021 on my phone. March 29th. So y'all gonna laugh at this, okay? So this is a vocal demo I had while I was on my run. This was literally on my run. I was running, I was halfway through my run, and this was literally the first thing I heard. So that melody hit me while I was on a run. I was like, and then I was like, yo, whoa, wait. Let me lay this down. And what you guys are hearing, I came back home. I came back home and I was like, I want to hear that melody, but I didn't know what chords would work with it. So I remember I sat down for about a few hours, and this is when I would stay up extremely late to work on ideas. And it was really unique, man. Was that Miles Davis? That was my that was me. That was my mouth. I was imitating like a trumpet, but that was just the first thing I heard. And so I stayed up super late playing this loop over and over again. And the result was this. This was March 2021. I remember when this happened, I stayed there, bro. I was there. Now, this was a whole accident. I was also rocking the Don't Force the Funk shirt. Shorter hair before beard. Hey. So y'all know the motif, and I remember I sat on that for about a year, and I remember thinking like this has to come out at some point. So also at the time, I was dating this friend of mine at the time. Um, her name Maxine. we were we were together at one point. But, you know, shout out to Maxine. Hope she's doing well. I had a day where I was like, I need you to record some like operatic vocals because at the time she was really, really good at like, oh, and so I needed that. So what we ended up coming away with was this. So those vocals were recorded like maybe a few months after the fact. And so I sat on it for a little bit, didn't know exactly what to do. And so, yeah, that was her. That was Maxine. But yeah, we basically like sat on it for a sec. And I remember thinking like, man, I need to be able to make this feel big. And so I remember having that loop, the same loop y'all know of. It was playing over and over and over again, but I started messing around with an arrangement. And the one thing I was not that strong suited in was creating arrangements. So I was like, man, I need to be able to like figure out what would be great. The fact that you get to document your life is something I think we get to soak in. Our kids can just hold these forever. Dude, this is going to be around in the next 10 years. Folks going to be like, yo, how did you? I'm giving y'all the codes. But this was basically it. We had that loop over and over again. And I thought for a second, what would be great is if I have like strings on top of this. So I remember having my friend, Louisa, shout out to Louisa Lee, Lulu V. She played the strings. If you guys don't know who Louisa Lee is, she's the GOAT. She's one of my favorite, one of my best friends, one of the greatest musicians and greatest people, you know, you could ever meet. She was like super down, and I actually met her around the time that I did Home. Y'all are gonna laugh at this, but this is the first time that I met Louisa. This is when I met her. Home Twitter. Let's see here. Home. There was a track I did called Home. And let me just see here. I'm gonna see if I could go all the way back. Yeah, August 20th, Blue. There was a joint I did with her. Let's see if I can pull that up real quick. Actually, you know what? Y'all gonna laugh at this. Let me go to my YouTube, hit studio, boom, hit content. All right, Afterthoughts. So I met her at the very end of me finishing Afterthoughts, right? But this is when I met her. It was this time. It was roughly this time. And after we linked, and it was one of the coolest days that I had ever had creatively, because this is the same day I met her, and I was like, yo, I ended up going to like New Mexico, and we did a whole songwriting camp. But this was the genesis of how I met Louisa. Now, fast forward, I asked her, I was like, yo, would you be down to play violin on this one record I'm working on called TRIPPIN? She was like, yeah, sure, send it over to me. And I told her the parts, and I was like, can you just send me your elements? And I got like a whole stringed thing here. And I sat with it and just was chopping it up. So I wanted her to play the same thing I mumbled, right? So with Maxine's vocals, you have this violin too. And so I kept all that. I was like, I have to keep all this. And so everything else you're hearing is Addictive Keys. I'm using Addictive Keys for the entire thing. I have this preset called Black Friday Funk, and I did modify it a little bit. So you got that one layered with this. So you combine that with I actually muted something right here. So yeah, that's how the elements happened. And even this right here, this was FM8. This synthesizer was FM8. And it's crazy when you add all those elements up together. It's like these are all really, really good. I feel like the piano was louder. It might have been. But this is just the pre-master of it. This was like a pre-master of the record. So what you got here is the UVI workstation. I'm using the synthesizers from that. Now, what's even crazier than this is this. So I have this bass, right? That's my crazy looking 6-string. Hold on, I could grab that real quick. Hold on. So this is supposed to have a total of 8 strings, right? But it's only 6. And I'll tell you exactly why. I went to tune it one day and 2 of the strings popped. This is the first bass guitar I had ever bought. First guitar I've ever owned. And I still to this day don't know how to like really move on frets like that. But my ear is pretty much right there. But this bass was the one that you guys are hearing for this record. So I only played the low octave because it had a stock of a high and a low, which is what you guys are hearing right here. I actually realized something. This modulated. So let me turn that off real quick. That's what I was about to say. It's modulated. That's why it sounded different. Right here. And then everything was literally just like. As well, these drums are also a part of a sound pack that I have. I think it might be on my the volume 9 sauce pack. These drums. So these drums, hilariously enough, the one shots and everything come from volume 8. So a lot of people don't know this, but before volume 9, there was a volume 8. And volume 8 was the first time that I was like, I'm going to record all of these drums from scratch, like completely from scratch. And so what you guys are hearing is my drum kit that I had at the time. And so I would just get all these different recordings out of it. This also led to the splice pack that I ended up coming out with like shortly after that. All those sounds are currently sitting in my volume 8 and volume 9. So if you want the one shots, go get volume 8. If you want the drum loop, get volume 9. But yeah, all that was like sitting in one crazy space. But all these, even the synthesizers and stuff that I added to this was a crazy, crazy experiment. Now, here is the coolest part. There was a whole happy accident with this, right? So I had this one element that was like a tone. And the tone that I had was this thing that was like, it was like an electric key sound. This is actually what inspired the electric key. I had this one tone and I was like, man, I like this tone. So I remember playing an intro and I was like, something about this intro feels empty. And I don't know exactly why. But then I was like, you know what? I like the tail end of this. But this is empty. What if you combine both of them together? So crazy, right? That's real crazy. That is real crazy, bro. How you layer synth keys, keeping its qualities without clashing with each other. So that is what I like to call the this album. Okay, so one thing I'll tell you about the album, The Funk Will Prevail. This album taught me how to texture. Okay, it taught me all about having everything be centered around one thing, but everything else is supporting. Yeah, because some EQ could take out some sound. Everything you're hearing right now is basically everything is giving space to each other. So I'm gonna just play everything in like separation. I'm not even gonna play the drums. Let's go and mute this real quick. So if I just kept the electric key, the keys for this, if I just keep the keys. They all had their own space. I did like some slight EQs, and I had a little bit of sidechain going on for everything. So it was a layer of both of these. So one is like a teenier, kind of like distortion bite. But notice the attack ain't that crazy. So when you combine it with something that is attacky, I was like, man, that layer sounds crazy. So I sat with this album to basically layer everything, make sure everything wasn't too loud. I just wanted everything to sound like it was supporting each other. That's why you're hearing these are the two main elements. Even if you guys were to look at the volume, you can see the two loudest things are my Addictive Keys presets right here. So anything else I added to this was supporting those two elements. I have two pianos. That are literally those. Slow-lo. My favorite part. Now, this is where I was like, I'm going to just start going crazy with it. What if I layer it with the synths? So, yeah, basically that. It was one of those things where I was like, I started noticing everything is starting to like bend. So I have something that's short and staccato, but I needed something that was a little extended. So I was like, texture-wise, I need some extra sounds. And all these, by the way, were just me expanding on every sound. So the first thing you had was this key right here. And then I layered it with this. Together created this. And then it started like, I was like, all right, I need some additives. Give me a little pad. Layer the pad with the chords. Now I have that element where I'm using this same kind of like sound. What's so interesting about this, and even me looking at it right now, I realized I wanted my synths in a way to mimic how thin this violin was. So the violin I was like trying to mimic the sounds of the violin with my synthesizer. That's why it all feels like it's on the same sonic palette, because I'm seeing sounds that have different timbres, different textures. But that was how I was coming up with it. I was like, what's an expansion of this? How can I give all these sounds more depth? And it was just expanding the current sound that you have. The craziest thing that I'm realizing now that I go back and revisit it, all these sounds that I'm choosing for this album at the time, they were all expanding on each other. All of them had sounds that expanded on each other. So if I had really teeny sounds with the violin, I needed really teeny synthesizers that had a little bit of movement. That's why it sounds like this. Now this right here is a whole accident. If I undo it, I'm not gonna be able to like access it. But this was a FM8 synthesizer that was mimicking the violin. So you have that, and the list. This is the last part, the bass line. I was like, I'm gonna just layer stuff. I'm gonna just start layering stuff. When you start adding all these elements and you extend a beat to like 2 minutes, you can start taking things in and out and start playing with it. So that's how I was starting to view it. Now the funny thing about this bass, I took the bass and like stretched it. And so the actual note was a lot more shorter. It was like, and so I was like, what if I like extend this? But what's funny is hearing it, you wouldn't hear the stretching going on. It was just me being like, how can I make it feel like it's bending, but not too much? My favorite element is this right here. Now that was all chopped. I chopped all that up and resampled it. So one of my favorite things is taking one sound and stretching it as far as I possibly can to see if I can create stacks and layers of it. So this is basically one like violin sound. And that's how it all happened. That's the whole record. So yeah. But yeah, y'all, I love y'all so much. This has been a really, really, really crazy Twitch stream.